Swaddling your baby can help them to sleep better. And I'm going to show you 3 very easy ways to swaddle your baby. But before we get down to swaddling, remember these 3 things. Don't swaddle too tightly. The baby's hips should never be forced into a straight line. They should have enough room for their hips to be flexed and to pull up their legs. Rule number 2, don't swaddle above the shoulders. In a lot of these pictures, they are swaddling babies up till here and it looks really cozy. But anything that is up above the shoulders has a potential of a suffocation risk, as the baby might be pulling it over their face. So when you swaddle, you want to keep it below the shoulders. Number 3, make sure your blanket is secure. It mustn't be loosely lying around the baby. Make sure your blanket is tucked in on the right places so that they can't pull it up high. If they get a hand that pops out, that's okay. Some babies actually really like that and they can suck on their thumb. It's very soothing. So first of all, when you start the swaddling, you want to make sure that you keep the blanket, or you fold a blanket into this triangle shape. This is quite a big blanket. You don't have to match the ends. You just have to fold the triangle like maybe 1/3 down. Then you put the baby down, remember, no higher than the shoulders. For the first method, you fold the baby's one arm under the blanket and you tuck the blanket underneath the bum. Then you take the other arm, you fold it over the chest, and you take that side, fold it over the baby's body, and you'll see you have a big portion left right at the bottom. You can just tuck this little tip in here. You fold the rest over the baby's body and you bring them together at the back, fold them nicely over, and the baby is tucked in. The second way to swaddle your baby is to start off like the first one, but if you want the baby's hands to be a little bit more free. So some babies don't want to be cross-chest when they sleep. They want their hands out, but you don't want their hands out completely because then they have this startle reflex and it can wake them up. So instead of just putting the hand over the chest and folding this blanket over, you're going to take this hand and just tuck it underneath the fold here on the swaddle and then pull it over. Do the same on the other side where you tuck this hand underneath the fold, pull it over, and you can see this baby now has his hands up here, which some babies prefer, but the hands are still tucked in. And then you do the same at the bottom where you just bring the blanket up, fold it over the baby's body and tuck it in at the back. So the last one, you start off the same way and you fold the baby's hand over the chest, fold the first part in, but instead of now folding the other arm in, you take the bottom part of the swaddle and you bring that up over the feet to cover the feet and tuck that behind the baby's back. And then the last part that you fold is the arm, and then the other side that you fold over the body and tuck it underneath the baby. All of these are different ways to make sure that the arms stay inside, the feet are not open and kicking out because they might not like it, and that the blanket is secured. There are definitely many more ways, but these are the easy ones that you can start with until you feel comfortable to figure out your own way. And there are certain rules that you need to keep in mind when it comes to swaddling. And I'll give you 3 bonus tips at the end of the video. Moving on. Rule number 1. Put your baby on their back to sleep. If they are swaddled, don't put them on their sides. Definitely don't put them on their stomachs. If they're on their side, as babies move around and they wiggle, they can flip themselves over onto their stomachs. I know a lot of the older people want to put a roll blanket behind a baby to tilt them. It's safest flat on their back. Use a safe swaddle. So don't use fleece blankets or blankets that are thick and not breathable. In case your baby ends up in a situation with a blanket pulled over somewhere over the face, you want the blanket to be as breathable as possible. So your cotton blankets, muslin blankets, anything with a hole in, you can actually test it. I have a blanket right here. If you want to know if a blanket is breathable or not, take a blanket, cover your face and form like a kind of a seal and blow out through the blanket. If you can feel your own breath and the heat from your breath in that bubble that you are blowing, then you know it's not breathable. So if I blow through a typical fleece blanket and I cover it and I make a seal, I can feel that the air goes through, but it feels hot around my face and it's difficult to blow the air through. If I use a muslin blanket, and you can see it is quite thin, and I cover my face and I blow out, I don't feel any heat. You can also hear how easily I blow the air out or draw air in. Airflow is barely restricted. Remember that you have to adjust the blankets based on the season. You do get warmer blankets, and I've got one right here. So this is a typical summer blanket. You can dress your baby warmly. Remember, a blanket also counts as a layer. I've got a video here on how to dress your baby if you want to see it. So this is a light blanket that will do well in summer. In winter time, you want to have a blanket that's got also this breathability, and one of these knitted kind of blankets, you can see the holes through here. Let me do my test. So this you can then use in winter time if you want to add this as an extra layer to dress your baby. If your baby can roll over, you don't swaddle at all, because then they are trapped, but they are able to roll over, and that's a suffocation risk. So 3 bonus tips. How do you know your baby is ready to stop swaddling? If your baby fusses a lot when you are putting their arms in, it means they don't like it. Sometimes they started earlier on, but sometimes they love the swaddle, and at some point they keep fighting to get that arm out, and you swaddle them, they fuss, they fuss, they fuss. You take their arms out and maybe just swaddle the bottom half, and they settle. Then you know you don't need to swaddle anymore. On that point, tip number 2, from about 3 months, you can stop swaddling your babies with the arms, and you can swaddle just the bottom part so their legs are nice and tucked in. It makes them feel cozy, but their arms are out, and this also allows them to give you hunger cues, which leads me to bonus tip number 3. You might have read or heard about new research showing that breastfeeding can be negatively impacted by swaddling. So you need to read the article in context. There are a couple of buts and context to understand. And the big thing with swaddling, there's 2 reasons why they say that. The first one is, and I don't know who would want to do this, when people breastfeed their babies when they are swaddled, it prevents the baby from latching properly. Now, for me, that would be an obvious one. If you want to breastfeed your baby, take them out of a blanket or a swaddle, get them nice and cozy. Their arms need to obviously be tucked in nicely. I have a breastfeeding video here that takes you through the entire latching and positioning of the baby, which necessitates taking the baby out of the swaddle. So if you take the baby out of the swaddle, that problem is sorted. The second reason is that if babies are swaddled, they don't show you their hunger signs necessarily. They don't show the stretches that you will see in this video here where I talk about hunger cues for babies. You don't necessarily see that if a baby is swaddled. Now that is true. So there are 2 things that you can do to prevent that. The one thing is to not swaddle your baby all the time. You can have a sleep where you decide in the middle of the day you want to swaddle your baby for that midday nap, because then the baby sleeps quite well and you kind of know the feeding schedule when your baby should wake up for another feed. Swaddling is also actually recommended to be under supervision and not throughout the night. So if you don't do that, the baby will still be able to give you hunger cues. And then the other thing that you can do is to leave one hand out of a swaddle. So the demonstrations that I've showed you, where you tuck the hands in or you fold the hands over the chest, you can leave one hand out, because that one little hand, the baby will start sucking on it, which is one of the hunger cues, and the baby will start stretching with that arm, giving you an indication, listen, this baby might be hungry. And at the same time, you can stick to your 2 to 3 hourly feeding schedule. Don't let newborns sleep for longer than 3 hours, because you want to make sure that they are feeding enough, they're gaining enough weight, they're having enough nappies. If they have 6 to 8 wet nappies, you know they are getting enough fluids, and that breastfeeding is probably not impacted by you swaddling your baby. If you need a refresher or a demo on changing a nappy for a baby, I've got one right here for you.